Hello guys, thank you very much for joining in. Hi, this is Ganesh Nayak. I help finance professionals and students to excel in their career and become a better version of themselves. And today I'm back with one of my videos in which primarily I'll be asking my student who has cleared FRM Level 1 in July exam. Her name is Karishma and she's going to help us with her experience of clearing the exam, the challenges she faced, and what has been the thought process, what has been the preparation methodology she has been using to clear the exam in the first attempt. Okay, so let us start with the discussion. And first of all, Karishma, thank you very much for joining in and sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience to the audience. And this is going to be really helpful for the audience who's going to go for the exam in the next few months. So thank you very much for taking out time.
Okay, thank you so much.
And so let us start with the discussion. The first point that I want to ask you is that when you decided to join or decided to start FRM, what were you doing at that point in time? So what were you working and what was the work experience that you had?
Okay, so basically I was working with an investment company and I was into the treasury and the risk side of it. So I already had a degree with me, which is I am a chartered accountant by qualification, but with these current crisis and with this Basel committee norms coming in, so what I could see in my practical life was LCR, NSFR, these things are quite relevant in the current scenario. Right. And which was not taught to us, when we did our curriculum and when we got our qualifications. So I might as well thought that, I might just go and, search a degree which would add to what I am already doing. And my basic target was also to get into an MNC. So, having a certified degree, global certified degree would help. That is how the FRM degree, I came across this course, which one of my friends was already doing. And through I got to know that this would help me grow, from where I am to where I want to go. So that is how I got in touch with this degree.
Okay, so perfect. So before you started the preparation, how many years of work experience you had?
So I already had 5 years of experience. So when I enrolled, I guess I was in my 4.5 somewhere, So when I enrolled so by the time I appeared, I had completed my 5 years of workings.
So from your last certification, which is last degree, CA, Chartered Accountancy, almost 4.5 years you had a gap and then you started this, right?
Yes, correct, yes.
Now,
so I was working time and that is when I started this.
Okay, perfect. Now, when you picked up the book, when you decided to go for FRM, you must have seen the curriculum. Was there anything that you thought that, okay, this is something which I don't know, or primarily this is something which I'm looking for the first time, or this is something which I have already seen in my previous qualification? I have some confidence on that.
Yes, so for me, so theory has always been my, I have been good at theory. So for me, cracking book 1 was good, and then I book 4 had quite some theory. So those 2 books were okay with me.
Right.
Then coming back to book 3, which is financial markets, which has your option swaps and those stuff. So those has been my interest point. I have been doing that in my work curriculum. So, I could connect to those chapters. One difficult book which I found during my journey was the quants. Okay. So that was quite difficult and, I tried to do it strategically. So, I like to be very frank. I left time series. I just went through it and I didn't put much efforts because that was something difficult for me. So, book 2 was something, which I had to put extra efforts for book 2. And because of the curriculum, which was I was not familiar with the entire book 2, to be very frank. And of course, after your lectures and everything, that guided me, how to go about book 2. But in spite of that, time series section was quite difficult for me.
Quite difficult.
So I tried to have a good grasp on the other areas and, be a little loose on book 2. I would say. Okay. Not book 2, but time series specifically.
Time series specifically. Okay. Now, one basic question. See, you had already had a chartered accountant certification.
Yeah.
You had some background, okay? Then why did you join a coaching institute?
Because number one, it is always though I would say that, some people would think that since I am a chartered accountant, it is easy to just glance through the book and, crack through it. Maybe it is true for some case, but for my case, whenever you're appearing for any course, you always need some guidance, some mentor or someone to show the path, how to go about it. There would be always some concept, like in spite of being a chartered accountant, there were quite some places where I needed guidance. So for those things, I was sure that I don't want to get stuck anywhere, because again, you are investing so much in the registration fees, the exam fees, then why think about, few more penny and, not take coaching.
Right. I agree.
So that I thought that it is good to have some coaching with my.
Just to add one more point, it's also about the time that you're putting in, because once you go for the exam and suppose you could not clear, again sitting and going through the content would be very, very painful. So that thought process has to be very clear. Now
it's good to know not to leave any stone unturned.
Definitely.
The exam cleared. So that is it.
Right. Now, when you started the journey, in which month primarily you joined us?
I think I was a little late for your course. If I remember, I joined in October, and by that time, I remember your course had already started, and you had told me that I'm late by a few weeks probably. But around October I had joined, and that was a weekend session because I had a full time job. And I have a kid also, so it was difficult for me to have a regular batch with you. So I had taken a weekend session, and that is when I joined.
Okay. And when you started, so what was the number of hours that you were putting in?
To be very frank, initially I used to put 2 hours on average, 1.5 to 2 hours initially. So at the end of the day, I used to try that before sleeping at least, because I can study better in the night. So that was my strategy, that at least, before going to bed, at least 2 hours on an average if I could put. So that was my goal every day. Of course, there used to be some days where I could not make it the required 2 hours, and then I used to try to cover up on the weekend after your lectures or before lectures, somewhere like that. But that used to be my strategy till, I guess, December, and I used to do that way, 2 hours, and then gradually, you increase the number of hours that you're putting to 3 to 4. So that is how we used to do it.
Okay. And so primarily, when did you complete your first reading? I'm not talking about question bank. I'm only talking about first reading.
To be honest with you, I remember you had told us that before you enroll before you pay your registration fees, you should complete first reading, but I could not live up to that mark. So I remember you had told me that by December you should complete your first reading, but I guess I had stretched it till mid-Feb, to be very frank. So till mid-Feb, I was done with my first reading of the entire curriculum, and plus a good amount of question bank. Because the way I used to do it was, few chapters and then take a question bank, few chapters and then take a question bank.
Right.
So that is how. So mid-Feb is by when, I completed my first reading and I had my exam. Yes.
And so primarily, say for example, from Jan onwards till June, so was there any period where you could not prepare properly, or you had other commitments from your family side, your work side, and it led to a gap? Was there any situation like that?
Yes. So till mid-Feb, everything was in full swing, and it was going according to what I had planned, and I was able to give the number of hours which I had committed at least. But then we had a house which we bought in, then we had to move, and things like that. Something or the other personal came up. So I think a month or more I could not study at all, and I used to feel guilty about it every now and then, that I'm not able to study. But that is what actually happened. I could not study at all, and then it was like not at all, but I used to weekly, when I used to earlier I used to touch the book every day, at least once in every 2 days, but then for that 1 month, I guess only every weekend I used to get time to touch my book. So that was difficult when I lost a little touch to the subject. But then I guess again March end I was back on track, and with this, yes, so I was again on on track by March end. So yes.
Okay. And
April, May, 2 months. Yes,
yeah,
sorry.
please go ahead. No problem.
So I had my exam on 12th June, and so April, May. So 2 months was something, which I had given like full dedication. I used to study for 3 hours
12
at
July.
least.
12 July, right?
12th July, yes, 12th July. So April, yes, so 3 months. So 3 months
Yes.
was something which I had given full dedication for. And I guess 3 hours is something which I had targeted. And by the time exam had approached, I had a week leave only from my organization. So that was a little difficult. I did not get 2 or, more. I had approached for 2 weeks, but I could not get it. So there was 1 week which I had before the exam, which was, so in that period, I at least ensured that I give 7 hours, whatever I used to give to my office, I used to give to studies, and, 7 to 8 hours per. So that is how I could do it.
Now, I have a few questions specific to your preparation. For example, when you completed your first reading, were you able to remember everything? Or what was that thought process? And what was that state in terms of your understanding related to the curriculum?
Okay, so first reading, my target was not to memorize everything in my first reading, but my target was definitely to understand what I am reading, to get my concepts clear, the flagging of the, where I have to revisit again, for my next rereading. So my target in my first reading was to prepare myself for the second reading, so that in my second reading, I don't spend so much time. So I gave quite some time in my first reading, got my concepts cleared, got my understanding cleared. So that was my target for my first reading. It was nowhere, memorizing thing or, spending time mugging up or anything like that. It was understanding based. So if I could understand, I used to go back to the videos or maybe, go back and get in touch with you. So that was my first target.
Right. The reason I asked you this question primarily because a lot of people ask me also that, okay, we have started the preparation, but I don't remember what I did in the first place. So obviously that is not the intention of doing the first reading, just to be aware about whether the curriculum is tough for you, which chapters are difficult, which chapter are easy, so that when you do your second reading, that is where you actually do proper solving and you get better understanding about the content. So coming back to the discussion now. So when you were solving, okay, like you said, you did 3 chapters and then you solved the question bank. Was it easy to do that, or was it what was you thinking? I mean, why didn't you go for 1 chapter 1 question bank, 1 chapter 1 question bank? Why not that?
To be very frank, for starting, I guess when I started with book 1 because it is theory and that is something which I like. So started with book 1. I did that for a couple of chapters. I did 1 chapter and then the question bank, 1 chapter and then the question bank. Then what I realized was question bank has a touch and flavor of other chapters as well. So it defeats the purpose if you have that pattern, to do it. So what I did was I decided, okay, chalo, isme 20 chapters hai, for example. Let's do 5 chapters of that book and then jump to the question bank. Maybe then you can relate to those questions better. So that is how I did it. I had that. I divided the book. If there are 10, then 10 chapters in a book, I'll divide it into 5. I'll do 5 chapters and then the question bank. That helped me. Of course, I would not say that still I got all correct answers, but at least that helped me understand that question better, and then the way I could tackle those questions. So, that was the difference.
And
so that is
all the quizzes that you were doing, all the question bank that you were solving was in a CBT format. Plus, was it time controlled?
Yes, it was. I used to do according to that timer rule.
Right.
Because the idea is that not be able to do it that way in the exam. So
see, I'm aware about it, but I'm asking you these questions primarily because of the audience. A lot of people feel that I will solve the question bank when I'm preparing in paper and pencil, and then I will do the final mock in CBT format. I certainly feel that's a very wrong approach, because you do not get the feel, you do not get the hang of using the computer, the comfort. That because every format will has its own challenge, so you'll have to get accustomed to that challenge to clear exam in a fast way. Now, one more question. So when you what were you doing with the difficult questions? So you picked up 5 chapter, You solve the question bank and you realize, okay, out of that 100 questions, or in the total 5 chapters, 30 you could not solve. What were you doing for that?
You are asking me about the preparation stuff, right? On
Yes.
The exam day.
No, preparation.
Yes. So I used to basically flag it off, or just make a note of it, and then after the test or after the quiz is over, I used to go and do some R&D for that, and then again, revisit those questions with some understanding when I have of it. So that is how I used to kill it.
Okay. So you were spending some time after the quiz also on the understanding of that incorrect questions. Okay. Now, primarily, what has been
a few questions where I used to spend 5, 6, 7 minutes, maybe, in the quiz section. So that used to, that I had no option, but to again revisit those questions, because spending so much time on one question was not okay in any scenario.
Right.
So I used to try to.
Yes. And what has been your thought process with respect to the content? So primarily, the calculation driven content in the curriculum, like for example, you had bootstrapping question, you had valuation of swap. So what was your comfort level on that calculation part?
See, so to be very, very frank, I know if you do your own studies or something, or if you have this studying with your friend idea, you would have various ways of doing or solving that question. But I used to stick to the method that you would have taught us, because there are people who are not comfortable with one method. They would try and search something on the YouTube or talk to their friends. Acha, ye question hai, iska solve karne ka koi aur tarika hai kya? So I especially when it used to come to practical, like solving questions, I used to just blindly follow whatever you had said, because as I again said in the start, there is some guidance that you require before solving, before approaching any course. So I used to do it that way. And so for me, theory, as I said, theory has always been strong. So even in practical questions, I used to ensure that the understanding and the theory part of it is clear in my head. And, then just go about, then the practical thing also becomes very easy once your theory is cleared. So that is what I want to emphasize, that once you understand what you're doing, it becomes very easy.
Right. So, perfect. Now, in terms of 1 month before the exam, okay, how many mock papers were you able to solve?
So I had touched upon, I guess, 3 mock papers before the exams.
Okay.
The sample cup paper also, I had just seen, I had not solved, to be very frank. I had seen 2 sample cup paper before the exam. And
what about our mock paper? Were you able to solve that properly in a timed manner, or was it just you looked at the paper?
No. I went for a proper test for your mock paper, like a proper 4-hour sitting test, So that is what I did. But I would not say that I was able to solve everything without any difficulty. But, I used to land around 60, 65 when I used to solve your papers. So that is, where I got my ranking.
And were you able to solve the sectional test which was provided by us, the book-wise test?
Yes.
You were able to solve.
Yes, so I started with, after the reading, after the quiz, chapter independent quiz, I went for the sectional test first, and then I started the mock. So that was, I think that helped a lot, because sectional test also gives you at least a clarity where you are standing, or, if there's any book that you need to touch upon again. So the sectional test also, I would say, it helped a lot. Okay,
perfect. And what happened on the day of the exam? In the sense, how was that 4 hours?
So basically 4 hours. Just to start with it, I was a little late to my exam, so I would at least want, no one should be doing that. Though so I was late by 10 minutes, and I lost my 10 minutes there and there for the exam. Okay. So after once I was in the examination hall, when I started picking up the question, so since I was already late, my target was to at least have an idea what questions are there in my bucket. So I just started with I just started shooting. Okay, ये question आ रहा है, answer it. नहीं आ रहा है, flag it off. I'll revisit. So that is how I visited the entire 100 questions for once, and in those 100 questions, I would say there were good 25 questions which I had flagged off, and those 100 questions I could do it in 2.5. Like visiting the 100 questions was something I did in 2.5 hours. And then I had 1.5 hours remaining for those 25 questions. And in 22, 25, if I remember. I don't remember correctly, but around 22, 25. So 1.5 hours, I again, the questions which I had flagged off, I again revisited those. And so then I had, time spending those. But in spite of those, out of those 20 to 25, I would say 7 questions were some, which I had just bluffed or, I could not understand basically, even after spending so much time reading and solving it. So if I had to make a choice, I just made some choice. But others is something, where I could calculate and where I could arrive at some figure at least. So, or some, check guessing at least. So that way, calculated guessing, I would say.
And the rest 80 question, around 75 question, 80 question, what was your confidence level in those questions?
I would not say that the questions, like all of so many questions which I had solved in your course, I would not say that, the same questions are picked up and you would see the same in the examination. But the concept and, as I say, once you understand what you are reading, you would be in a position to solve those questions. So understanding things in the right way is very important. So out of the 75 questions, I would say at least 55 to 60, I was sure this is something that, my concepts are clear here, and this is something that I'm sure it would be right.
Okay.
So that is, it was.
And the paper was theory heavy or quant heavy for you?
I feel it was theory heavy, though there was some quant, like there were some simple quants also, like what is the Sharpe ratio for this? What is the calculation according to CAPM, for example?
Similar kind of question.
But yes. But even, for the practical questions that they were asking, there was some theory touch to it. So I would highly recommend that, the focus should be more on not only theory, but even for the practical stuff, get the theory clear in your head, the logic and the understanding behind it.
Right.
So that is something I would recommend.
And even though you started 10 minutes late, you were able to complete everything properly in that time frame.
Yes, I would say. I had, I guess not properly. I had, so see, before I went for the exam, I had targeted that I would at least try to have 15 minutes in the end in my hand, so that, I could again see what I have answered, how have I answered. But since I was late, I could not find that 15 minutes to myself. I had 2 or 3 minutes in the end to myself, So I was like, touch and go situation kind of thing.
Okay. And when you completed the exam, and you've seen the score, that was in around 60 to 70 range, if I'm not wrong.
Oh no, so for my case, I could not see this. There was some technical glitch. I had shared also. I proposed that I could not see, what is the score.
Right. You told me.
Yes.
So now, since there was no score available, what was your thought process when you completed everything? So what was that number that you felt that, okay, this is what I might get out of 100, right?
I think I should have landed around 65 is what I thought. 60, 65 is something that I had in my mind when I was trying to find that tab, from where could I get to see this?
Okay. And were you comfortable with that 65 number that you thought that I might get from the exam? Are you comfortable that, I'll be able to clear the exam?
No, because I did not know, like, if the decoding of that 65 is pass or fail. So I was sure, but at least I was, I had this concern कि चलो जो मैंने test solve किए थे उसमें I had got 60, 65 and which was a good average kind of thing. So at least I should be landing around that number in my final exam as well. Because you don't know before the exam that, if you get 65 it is pass or fail. You really don't know.
Agree. Agree.
Yes.
So because after the exam, definitely when the results came out, we have realized that people who have scored around 52, 53, even 50 also, they have been
Yes.
able to clear. So this time the paper, since the paper was slightly tough, the
Correct.
passing number has also gone down and people have been able to clear the exam properly. Now, few specific question to you. Okay. What were the two or three primarily biggest challenges that you faced during the entire preparation journey?
So for me, like if book per se, so time constraint was always, because I already had so much in my plate that to manage for me the entire course was very difficult. As I had told you, I had an office, I had a kid, I had a family. So it used to be very difficult to find time, but I would only recommend that if you have if your mind is set for this thing that, okay, I have to do this, then you just put in the efforts and you'll get through it. So that is what I would say. So of course the time was a biggest constraint. I had to really fight for time from everyone, from my office, from my family, from myself also. Like if I had to rest, I had to tell myself, okay, let's not rest. Instead of resting, let's study. So so that was how it was. With preparation, I would say quant book 2 was quite difficult for me because everyone has their strong and weak point when it comes to studying. So for me, book 2 was a little difficult because it had so many calculation, it had so many formulas to remember, and so that used to be a little difficult thing for me. And for the exam per se, so I would say that, it is all about how you do in those 4 hours. So no matter how well you prepare, or, if you, in those 4 hours, if your mind is proper, you'll be able to get through it. So I think managing those 4 hours is very important, though I had a strategy in my mind, but for some reason I got late. But still, you don't lose your cool. You be calm, composed, कि चलो जो सामने है वो देख लो, complete करो, and then we'll think about what happened. If I been stuck here, मैं 10 minutes late हो गई, now how do I go about it? Then I would have just panicked and collapsed maybe there. So you just be calm, composed, be confident that what you have done is correct and right, and you trust yourself with that, and then just appear and take the question one by one as it is. So I think that will help.
Perfect. And one more final question. In fact, last two questions. What would you say to people who are working right now and primarily they might, or they want to go for the exam, but they are not able to go for the exam because of XYZ reason? FRM or CFA, any upskilling exam. What do you feel is the importance of these certifications that can add to your career primarily?
So my personal experience, if I would share, so as I said, I was already working in an investment bank when I had enrolled for your course, and the very reason I wanted to take up this course because the courses that I have done, for example, are now 6-7 years old. So when you have to upscale your craft, there has to be something which is there in the market which you need to add to your, what do you say, curriculum as well. So taking up this, so my idea of taking this course was I wanted to get into an MNC, to be very frank. And when I was giving my other interviews, I always highlighted that I have this course which I'm appearing for, because that time when I had appeared for this course, I was just the candidate of FRM1. I had not got my result or anything. But on the basis of just having pursuing this degree, I was able to fetch in a new job. So I feel it will help you grow in your curriculum. And there are countries where the Indian courses are not recognized. For example, CA, it is recognized in Australia, but it is not recognized in UK. So having a global degree in your bucket would really help you go far from where you are. So that is something which I would, say that it helped me at least, if no one else.
Okay. So, and when you completed, you got the result and all, what has been reaction of people around you?
Okay, so of course, family and friends, of course, need not mention. They all were very happy. But after I got this degree in my hand, I mean, just sharing my personal experience, even the organization that I was leaving had said, okay, chalo, ab to aapke paas aur ek degree bhi aa rahi hai, so might as not we would want you to stay here only and continue your career in our organization with some value add that you already have. So,
Okay.
and basically, when you do this degree, the avenue for risk opens, in the market for you. So, and in the Indian markets, what I have realized is there are no such many risk professionals that you would find. So so the reason that I took this degree was after understanding how the Indian market is. So there are there's no specialization for risk.
Right.
And after financial crisis, like you would know, now there's a requirement to have a chief risk officer in almost all the organization, all the banking stream at least.
Right.
So you already always need to have a risk team also. So to form those team, of course, there would be some risk professionals requirement. So that is how I landed that. Any which way I had some interest in risk, so I thought, I might as well take this course, which would help and which will help. So
perfect. Perfect. Great. Thank you, Karishma. I mean, this conversation that we had, it's wonderful, because this is definitely going to guide people who are working and to upskill themselves and go towards either FRM, CFA or similar kind of certification. And also for people who are going to go for the exam, they would be able to look at your interview and see what you have been able to do in that preparation journey and how you were able to clear. Because a lot of people are doing self-study and they don't talk to people, they don't join any institute also, but they need guidance. And that is precisely what I was also wanted to do with interviews, to help and guide people. Okay. So thank you very much, Karishma. And thank you for putting your time and taking out time towards this and adding value to the community and helping us out. Thank you very much, Karishma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.